reverse engineer, and then we reverse engineer the pitch before we go straight into the presentation.
All right, we have another startup joined the call now, so there are 3 currently on the call. We're going to record the session and hopefully share them as well.
All right. So as has been pointed out, my name is Dr. Ebi Ofrey. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Accelerator. And interestingly, I was part of the one of the early cohorts of ventures. So I feel very, very close to them, and always make sure I make myself available to whatever sessions they have. It's also interesting to note that I've been on both sides of this pitching thing. I've pitched in numerous competitions to numerous investors, and I've been a judge on the other side, also listening to it. So I come with the perspective of both the pitcher and the person being pitched to. So right now, what I want us to do is begin by looking at one of my pitches, and then getting our comments on what they feel the pitch was like. What did they like about it? What do they think can be improved upon? Let's just talk about that a bit for about 10 minutes. And then we'll go into the pitch presentation itself. And what I also want to note is that this is supposed to be a very interactive session. So I look forward to hearing a lot more of our voices. So it shouldn't just be me talking alone. The more I hear from you, the better the session will be. And I think most times when I ask a question, I expect at least 1 or 2 answers before I move along. And so if you don't provide the answers on time, you may delay the sessions, because I will not move forward if I don't hear an answer to 1 or 2 answers before I take the next step, to be sure we are all following. So what I'll first of all like to do is to share a video of a pitch I think I did sometime last year, and let's watch it and give our feedbacks on it, because that also forms the foundation for what we're about to hear. So is that okay? Is that okay? So we are practicing now, as I said, before I move. All right. So please give me hosting rights or enable me to share my screen. And it would be nice if our videos are on also. I'd like to see the people I'm talking to. Awesome. I think I'm speaking to one person and a few ghosts still. I would like the other ghosts to show themselves.
Sorry, I'm not in a very conducive place, so it's difficult for me to share. Yeah.
So can you all see my screen? Let's stop first again. Try again. So can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Awesome. All right, so this was one of my pitches sometime last year, and let's just see how it goes.
I see Dr. Ebi there. Beautiful. Okay. Dr. Ebi, we see you. A great company here over in Africa. Again, massively scaling. Dr. Ebi, tell us what you're doing in Africa and why this is so important.
All right. So hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Ebi Ofrey, co-founder and CEO of Accelerator. And at Accelerator, we're totally transforming healthcare delivery in Africa, beginning with the elderly and beginning in Nigeria. So why the elderly, you may ask? 75% of people in developing countries lose one or both their parents to untimely death, or have them severely incapacitated by conditions that could ordinarily have been prevented all before these people at the age of 40. And this simply because it's an absence of structure for care for these people. This may just sound like a statistic to you until you have a personal experience like I did. A few years ago, in the space of 1 year, my father had 2 strokes. And this was not because there's nothing I could have done. I was simply living and walking far away from where he was. And this condition is not peculiar to me, as there are millions of Africans living and walking far away from where their parents are. And the only time they hear anything is when something goes tragically wrong. And so my co-founders and I decided to make it our mission to solve this problem and ensure millions of people don't have to go through this same thing I went through. So GeroCare makes it extremely easy for Africans wherever they are in the world to subscribe for regular doctor home visits for their parents in Africa using the GeroCare mobile application. They simply download the app, input their parents' details, and make a payment. Immediately, these parents are matched to a doctor who lives nearby, who begins to visit these parents at home at least once a month and give us, the children, real-time feedback wherever we are in the world. And we've been able to do so because we have successfully created a cloud-based hospital structure that provides the entire experience of the clinic in the comfort of the home, from doctor home visits to tests at home to drugs at home, and even complementary services like caregivers and physiotherapists. And we are glad to say that for over 5 years now, we've been able to consistently and successfully solve this problem by providing care for over 100,000 elderly people, giving them more time to spend with their children and grandchildren. Right now, we make money in 3 ways. The first is the subscription, with individual plans with people like you and I making monthly payments for our parents. We have enterprise plans that involve partnerships with organizations to bring on board groups of subscribers at once. We have the non-subscription or on-demand plan where you pay only when you need the service, and we have referral commissions of every other service accessed via our platform. And the people really love what we're doing, as evidenced by our numbers. So for the first 3 years, we grew 2x year on year. And on the 4th year, we grew 5x. And we have found the formula that works. And we believe we can continue these multiples over the next few years, such that by 2025, we'll be making an annual revenue of $100 million. And so it's clear we have a great product, but we also have a great team led by myself. I've been a doctor now for over 20 years. I have a master's in business, for which I graduated with a distinction, and I have a certificate in geriatric care. My partner, Dr. Ajibola, is a neuroscientist, expert in healthcare marketing. He has a PhD and was involved in the implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme for Nigeria, and has also been practicing for over 25 years. Our technical co-founder, Bruce Lucas, has been building and developing software now for over 20 years, and we have been recognized for our efforts internationally. The World Health Organization chose GeroCare as one of the top 30 healthcare innovations in Africa in 2019. In 2020, we were selected as a finalist for the Africa's Business Heroes Award by the Jack Ma Foundation. In 2018, we were selected as top 50 business innovators in Africa by the Africa Innovation Summit. We've also been showcased with BBC, and more recently, ongoing, we are finalists in the Kofi Annan Award for Innovation in Africa. And we strongly believe that GeroCare is the future of primary healthcare, not just in Nigeria, but all across Africa, converting every home to a primary healthcare center. And we are well on our way to achieving this. But to get there much faster, we're looking to raise $1 million at a valuation of $10 million for staffing and quality assurance, for expansion into Ghana and Ethiopia and marketing, for infrastructure, both tech and medical equipment, and research and development. And this is just the beginning. We are building the Amazon of digital preventive care in Africa, beginning with doctor home visits. Then we move to telehealth, wearables, and marketplace, and an Uber-type care for the elderly, leveraging on our already existing and trusted brand name. So we invite you to join us on this journey as we totally revolutionize healthcare delivery in Africa forever. Thank you very much. All right. So let's first take our comments and then try to deconstruct it a bit before we go into the presentation proper. So I'd like all the startups here to say 1 or 2 things before we go forward. You heard my rules, we may not move until I hear something.
Jacob, Kessia, Emeka, someone wants to go?
Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
I I think it's a good presentation. It clearly defines what the problem is, who has it, give an idea of why it's a problem, and then went on to define the solution as well. Then it touched on the target market, the size, the revenue model, and then the close was also it ended with a powerful close. So overall, it's a good pitch.
Was there something you would have liked to hear that was not there?
Well, the pitch wasn't so clear about. Yes, it talked about Gero Care eventually becoming the future of primary health care. I think maybe for the elderly, right? But in terms of what like how that or what the next steps would be, it's not really mentioned.
So would you like to find out about that?
Sure.
So will you contact the person to find out about that?
Yeah.
So you get the idea. So it's not to spill everything, but to make it interesting enough that they want to have a follow-on conversation. Your pitch is not supposed to tell them everything about your business, but it's supposed to get them very interested, because at no point in time is your deal closed on the pitch alone. They have to want to come and hear the other things that are intriguing about the business. So it's also important to make sure you don't try and cram everything inside, because if you try to do that, you'll spend more than the time and you'll be speaking much too fast. And then the essence of what you need them to get, they might not get. So that was something key I wanted us to take out of it also. There's a lot more I could have said. That's why I asked, what would you like to have heard? Because many times we cram so many things in it, but the meat of the thing may be diluted by the over-information in the pitch. All right, so the next person, please. So can you just give me the company names? So I call the names directly instead of waiting, because it seems by waiting.
Okay, we have Ecobar and Alabaster. Keep it fresh.
So please just call the next startup. Let's hear from the person.
Jacob, could you unmute and give your comment? Jacob, Kessia, if you're there, can you unmute as well and give your comment? Jacob, go ahead. I see.
All right.
Go on.
Okay, I think, yeah, it was a great presentation. I mainly liked the beginning, how you put the fact, and then now how you made it like personal. Yeah, that's like very catchy, and which is what we ideally need in the beginning.
Okay. So is Jacob going to say something that we'll just move on?
Jacob, you're muted earlier. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So I think we'll just move on to the presentation proper. So let me share those slides. No, but for us to get the best out of this, it's important we are very interactive, or else we will lose out quite a bit on what we're supposed to learn. Because the more you listen and try to participate, the more you're able to assimilate what's going on. So we'll begin the presentation on how to pitch your business. And this goes for just more than pitching competitions or pitching to investors, because every single day you are pitching, be it to your customers, be it to your workers, be it to everybody you meet daily. And that's why it's important to understand these concepts very well. So I noticed something, those I spoke to during the mixer, I brought it up with them. In the sense that, for instance, when you're asked in a networking session or in a meeting or wherever it is to introduce yourself and talk about what you do, it's always important to understand that people don't really care what you do, they care about the problem you solve. And so everything else you do afterwards in that session is, predicated on how well you introduce your business. And so the hack is to start with the problem I'm solving is, or you can say basically it's not about what I do, it's the importance of the problem I solve. And the problem I solve is dash, and the way I solve it is by doing dash. You will realize that with that, you are able to simplify your solution, and every single person listening to you automatically knows what you're doing. So when you're asked to introduce yourself, my name is so-and-so from so-and-so, the major problem we solve is, this is the problem, and then this is the solution. So everybody's carried along going forward from what you say. So what are the objectives of a good pitch? First, you need to captivate the audience. You need to grab their attention. Once you have grabbed their attention, you need to validate the statements you made to show that it's actually real and possible. Finally, you need to motivate them to take action. If you want them to be partners, give them reasons to be partners. If you want them to invest, give them reasons to invest. Whatever you want from them, you give them a reason to do it. But it has to fall into these 3 key categories. You must captivate. You must break preoccupation. If they were not listening to you, the moment you start, you should grab their attention. And once you have done so, to help them understand, these are not just highfalutin statements. You must validate what you said and then move them on to motivation to take action, whatever you want them to do. So now, what are the ingredients of a good pitch? So every pitch, you must focus on 3 key things, very important. 1 is the audience, because the audience determines your style of pitch, the content of your pitch. 2, once you have identified the audience, you need to be able to tailor the content to that audience. Once you've tailored the content, you need to be able to deliver it appropriately. So 1, if you have understood the audience, but the content is not matching, the pitch will fall flat. If you understand the audience and have the right content, but the delivery is not catchy enough, everything might also fall flat. Because I remember there was a case while we were first starting up of a company, I think it was while we were in Ventures House in 2017. There were investors that were willing to drop money for a company. So they wanted to have a conversation with the team. They liked the idea, but the delivery from the team, they didn't get the passion. They didn't get what they were expecting. The team had no idea. The people had their check with them right there to seal the deal. But because of the delivery, they lost confidence in them. So though you may have the right audience, you may have the right content, if the delivery is not right, you may totally lose that deal. So we begin by talking about the audience. So now we are focused on funding and raising funds and stuff like that. And so we'll focus on that type of audience. And that audience is broken into 4 key categories. 1, they are investors, focused on return on investments. 2, we have grants or donors that are focused on impacts. We have the blended financing, or what they now call the impact financing. Impact financing and blended financing may not be exactly the same, but they are in the same WhatsApp group. We have competitions whereby you pitch in either a demo day for a competition or whatever competition it is, and their own criteria is the judging criteria. It may be a competition for impact or for equity or whatever it is, but they all have criteria they're looking at, and that will determine how you go about your content and your delivery. So if you are pitching to investors, you need to be heavy on your revenue and the traction. If you are pitching for donations and grants, you need to be heavy on the impact. If it's some sort of blended financing where it's both impact and revenue, or social enterprise where you're solving a social problem but with orthodox business skills, you need to focus on both of them. But in that sense, you may focus more about 60% on impact and 40% on revenue to show that what you are doing can actually sustain the business. Many times people focus on grants and donations, focus more on the impacts. But the people providing those funds need to understand that even without them, they may be able to continue the business successively. So the key difference between grants and donations and blended financing is that for grants and donors, for instance, I give the example of HIV/AIDS. When they come into the country, all those developmental agencies, their focus is on providing free drugs, providing free that and that. And the key is for them to provide these things for the people to use and have an impact. They're not expecting to generate revenue from the free drugs they're given. So they're more focused on the impact they'll get. But some others are looking at it such that they will not be constantly providing donations. If you provide grants or donations the first time, the business should be able to continue sustaining itself such that by the second, third year, it can go on its own. And for competitions, they all have judging criteria, no matter what competition it is. And the criteria are focused on various areas. So no matter how beautiful or how eloquent your delivery is, if it doesn't meet all other criteria, you might not do so well. I remember listening to a founder who was talking about the fact that he pitched to impact investors, but it was more focused on revenue. But they saw the growth of the business, but they did not see the impact, and was wondering why they did not invest in the business. But simply because they saw the revenue, but what they were looking for was impact. Some other people will pitch to impact investors and be focused more on the revenue. So if you notice, can anybody tell me the people that my own pitch was focused at? Kessia. Can you give me an idea of who you feel my pitch was focused at?
You were focused on investors.
Investors, exactly. If I was focused on impacts, or grants or donations or impact investors, I would have leaned more heavily on the problem. I would have stated the fact that the elderly are dying untimely deaths at a point in time when they should be taking care of their grandchildren, passing their information along. They spend their productive lives doing a lot of things, but in a time when we need them the most, their lives are cut short. And there are a lot of things you should do to improve this, blah, 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 blah. I'll spend time on that to create more of an impact, to create a bigger problem, and then show you that we are doing a lot more as regards to solving that problem. Help you feel the pain, and then move forward on that. But since I was more on investors, you realize I focused a lot on our attraction, on our growth, on our reasons to believe, and so on and so forth. So those are the thoughts you need to have in mind. When you are going to pitch, you must first of all understand who are these people? What is their focus on? If it's possible to look at other investments they've done and the type of investments to determine how you phrase your statements. It's also important to note that the slides you pick for the presentation are important. So I expected some people would say, in my own slides, they didn't see competition, they didn't see this, they didn't see that. But the key thing I wanted you to note was that it's important to have a master deck with every single slide you can think of. Competition, all those the grid for the competitive landscape where you put yourself to the top, to the right, and all those type of things. The size of the markets, the TAM, the SUM, the SAM, all those things. So depending on who you're talking to, you make the relevant slides available. You don't pitch the same slides to everybody. You must understand who they are first before you develop your slides. So your slides are developed, but you just take out certain slides. Because as you will note, most of these pitches have limited time. Some people will tell you they have 3 minutes. I remember recently I did a 2-minute pitch, but I had to understand what the people wanted to hear, or else I would have been rushing along the pitch, trying to fit in everything I have in my 5-minute pitch. And for that pitch, it was interesting because we had about 15 startups speaking, and they wanted everybody to do a quick 2-minute pitch, and then pick only 3 people to listen to a longer pitch. Out of the 3, they will pick 1 to talk to further. But out of everybody else, I was one of the only ones that were picked out of the 3 to be listened to for a 5-minute session, simply because I distilled it into the key things they wanted to hear, and I didn't speed through it. They understood what I was saying and were willing to hear more. Similar to what the first speaker said, there are certain things I said that triggered the emotion of wanting to hear more. So they didn't hear it, but they knew there's something intriguing about what he just said. I need to hear more about it. But if I had tried to pack it into it to sound like too much jargon, you're speaking so fast, people are not hearing what you're saying. And so that's why it's key to know who you're speaking to and determine what slides you put into your presentation. Are we together? I need to hear voices.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
All right. So are there any questions as regards to the type of audience? If there are none, just say there are none, I can move along.
None. None.
All right. So we move to the content. So there are 3 unbreakable rules of pitching content. 1 is storytelling. 2 is it must be emotional. And 3, it must be memorable. Many times our pitches sound like lectures and not like stories. The idea is that people like to hear stories, but people don't like to be lectured to. If you have the option of watching a short movie or going to a lecture, what will you choose? You would rather listen to the story. I remember when we were younger, once you hear the statement once upon a time, you are relaxed. You are ready to hear an intriguing story. So the people should feel like they are here for both enjoyment and education, and not like we are here for a lesson. And that's why, if you notice, the segues in my own slides were very, continuous or very coherent. I didn't say, now this is the problem. I didn't say this is the solution. Some people will say what you're supposed to be seeing on the slide is all those things. Take out from the fact that it's a story. 2, it must be emotional. Everybody feels they're logical, but everybody makes decisions emotionally and then find a reason to justify that logic. So once you are liked, people will find a reason to try and justify the fact that they want to do business with you. And 3, it must be memorable. Once they leave the place or once they leave where you are, they should be able to remember you and remember the story you told and remember how they felt when you were telling the story and be able to replicate or tell them a part of what you said. So most times you see scouts who come and analyze businesses and take it to their venture partners to listen to. The person listening must be able to go back to the venture partner and explain the vision in the same or similar passion to what you had, because he caught the passion when you were speaking. He felt emotional about it, and he actually remembered what you said. The problem is that many times people say a lot of things, but when people finish, they don't have anything to hold on to. So always remember, when you're giving your pitch, storytelling is key. It has to be emotional. It has to be memorable. So what we need to also note is that every story pertains to people. It doesn't matter what you are doing, be it an environmental business, be it climate change, be it whatever it is. The reason you are in that business is because it affects people. And so there are 3 basic things that must be in every story. 1, the people involved in the situation or solution or problem, the challenge they are facing, and how your problem is solving it. So whatever the story is, first of all, must have these 3 parts. And these are usually the beginning of your deck. So this covers the problem, this covers the solution, this covers the target markets, people involved in that problem. So 1, I currently use the 3-1-3 pitching formats, which I got from a guy called Ryan Folland. So you guys should write it down and go to YouTube and check out the video. Ryan Folland. He talks about the 3-1-3 pitch technique. Fortunately, I had the privilege to be taught personally by him, and so I got a good grasp of the technique. So what he says is similar to what I said earlier on. I mean, people don't care what you do. What they care about is the problem you solve. And the key is to make the problem serious enough that they want to support you. I remember the guys that talked on the mentor mixer, I mentioned this to them, that when you state your problem, anybody listening must be moved by the problem. They must want that problem to be solved. If they can't solve it, they will join you to find who will solve that problem, because the problem is a big problem. Remember how I started my pitch. I said 75% of people in developing countries, Nigeria inclusive, will have lost one or both their parents either to untimely death or have them severely incapacitated by conditions that could otherwise have been prevented. And this will happen before these people at the age of 40. So by the time you hit 40, either one or both your parents are dead, But if they are not, then one or both of them have serious medical conditions. And that is the fact. If we look at the people around us, those 40 and above, how many of them have both parents alive? Or how many of them have both parents fully healthy? It's a very small and minute amount. So many times these are problems that are going on around you that you have no idea about. That is a problem that needs to be solved. That's a problem you can get behind. So the key is to make sure your problem is as bloody as it needs to be, for lack of a better word. They must see that, no, this person must succeed in this solution it's providing. Because this thing he's trying to solve is a problem that needs to be solved. There's a difference between a paper cut problem and a finger being chopped off. There's some problems you will say, and the person says, we can live with it. Or he's not really moved by the problem. He doesn't really bother about what you say. It's not a key thing. For instance, we know what a paper cut is. If you have a paper cut, all you do is just tap the finger, or maybe lick it a bit, and then that's the end of it. But if your finger is chopped off, it's an emergency situation. Something needs to be done. And so the question you ask yourself is your problem a paper cut or a finger being chopped off? If at the moment your problem is a paper cut, then you need to find the bloody part of it. So I was speaking to some startups, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and was talking about the fact that, the problem is solving is that women have to walk about 10 kilometers to be able to sell their produce. Yes, it's a problem, but doesn't really catch my attention. And so the question was the fact that they have to walk that long to get to the market. How is that a problem for them? We now drilled and drilled and drilled and found out the key problem was them selling their produce made up 80% of their livelihood. So the faster they can get to those locations, the more they're able to sell, the more they're able to sustain their families, the more they're able to lift themselves out of poverty. So a lot of people are wallowing in poverty simply because they don't have access to where to sell their goods. So that was a bigger problem. So the fact that they are walking 8 kilometers, yes, they do that. People walk miles to fetch water. But how is the impact of that? The problem you are solving, what is the impact of that? How bloody can you make it seem? As anybody listening to it only thinks about one thing: how can I solve it? And the beauty is that you are here providing a solution. So the problem like this exists, but there is also a solution, which is me. But the problem is that I can't get this solution to the market until I get the funds I need or whatever I need to get it done. So first of all, the problem must be extremely clear, extremely bloody. When I say bloody, I mean extremely severe, such that I don't even make up things. Because if you drill down to the reason why you are doing what you are doing, it has a bigger effect. So it's not just the lack of first aid or the lack of care, that's something. But what does that lead to? That is the actual problem you are solving. And it's important when you start it, people must feel, wow, so this has been existing around us and I've been living in the matrix. People are suffering like this. So that is key. Problem you are solving. Then you must state the solution you are providing. And again, it's important we have limited time not to keep on rambling about these things. So you must be able to distill the problem you are solving into one sentence, the solution you are providing into one sentence, and the market you are solving it for into one sentence. So that's basically what the 3-1-3 challenge is. Stating the problem in one sentence, solution in one sentence, market in one sentence. That's the first 3. And then being able to combine those 3 into one sentence. So your problem, solution, market into one sentence, and then later into 3 words. So if you're able to do that, no matter who you're talking to and at what point in time, you're able to quickly tell them what problem you're solving, what you are doing, and who exactly it is for. So the pitch begins by the problem, the solution, and the market. So when I say market, I don't mean, most of us here understand what I mean. But market must fall into 3 categories. They must meet 3 criteria. 1, they must need your solution. 2, they must be able to afford your solution. 3, they must be willing to buy your solution. If they don't fall into all these 3, then they are not your market. For instance, if they can afford it, are willing to buy it, but do not need it, that's not your key market. If they need it, cannot afford to buy it, but are willing to buy it, if they have the money, it's not your market. If they need it, can afford it, but are not willing to, they are not your market. So you have to find a way to make sure you capture this group of people. So those will be your target markets. So problem, solution, market, target markets. So this falls into the category of captivate. So you have to captivate. And when I say captivate, you have to tell the story of the problem, the solution, and the market in compelling terms. Make sure your problem is a finger being chopped off and not a paper cut. Make sure your problem is something they want to have solved. Again, it's important to note, to connect to the emotional side of things, it's important to put a human face to it. Again, looking back to my pitch, I stated the problem. I now added the story of my own experience. Again, I noticed in the early days when I go and make presentations in churches, for instance, it is the story that catches people's attention because they have a situation like that. They know someone that's experienced that. They can deal with it. And that's why many times you see in all those advertisements talking about funding Africa, feed a child or something like that, or $1 can feed a child a day. They know the problem is humongous, but they can't focus on the fact that billions of people are dying, donate to it. Yes, that can be said, but it's not as effective as coding down to one person that has the problem and then you replicate it. So the problem I stated affected me, but I know that millions of people are facing the exact same problem, living and working far away from their parents are and can't care for them. But I made it real by making it a story about myself. In your case, it might not be a direct story about yourself, but about somebody you know or about a situation they can relate to, and then you expand it. So many people start with personas of somebody experiencing this. This is just one of millions of people and so on and so forth. But you must help them to engage with what you are saying, no matter what it is. So you need to what? Captivate their attention. And once you have done this, it's now important you validate the solution you are providing. So by validation, you look at how it is a business, the market size, and how you will make money. How you will make money basically is the business model. Again, I use my pitch. We make money in 3 ways. 1, subscription. I think very clear terms. Don't go too far. Don't say too much about it. The less, the better. But let it be clear and straightforward. When I say it's a subscription model, almost everybody knows what a subscription is. I don't go down and start breaking it down to this and that every month. They pay. Subscription has explained that. 2, on demand, when you pay only what you need. And 3, referral commissions. Whatever model you have, you need to be able to succinctly explain what it is and move forward. Then we talk about market size. So for my own pitch, I didn't dwell much on this, but we understand there are 3 types of, when describing market size, there are 3 descriptions. We have the total addressable markets, we have the serviceable addressable markets, we have the serviceable obtainable markets. So what I usually liken it to is the buffet. When you go to a buffet, the entire buffet is the total addressable markets. Then you have the plate in your hand. That's the serviceable addressable markets. At each point in time, what you can take is determined by how much you can fit on your plate. And then the serviceable obtainable market is dependent on the type of cutlery you have. The amount of food you can dig in with a fork and with a spoon are 2 different things. But it's based on the capacity of the tool or vehicle you have that determines how much out of the serviceable addressable markets you can actually get. So the total addressable market is everybody. The serviceable addressable market is the plate you have. And the serviceable obtainable market is the cutlery or tool you are using to dish from that plate. Again, it's important to note that many times, though our total addressable market sounds so large, many people don't really focus on that. As investors, you say our total addressable market is this, but we know no matter how big it is, what can affect you is a serviceable addressable market. You say total addressable market is $1.7 trillion. That is all well and good. You know it sounds big to you, but it does not affect anything you're doing. Because your serviceable addressable market, no matter how big the buffet is the size of your plate that counts. You can't sit down at the buffet with a chair and begin to eat from everything. No, they know the buffet is there. Total addressable market is always there. But how much can you take upon your plates? And on the food on your plate, how much can you actually take at every point in time? And that's where the focus should be. So all they talk about, if you can only get 1% of the total, all that doesn't make any sense. You won't lose credibility by saying those type of things. Next, we look at the traction. Traction is key, because no matter how beautiful your idea sounds, if nobody is using it, then it makes no sense to them. Because most of the time, the person that has the idea, the business sounds very good. So I usually give the example at this point of a business that started years ago. That was way before all this MTN value-added SMSs and so on and so forth. And so the business was called Sphinx Weekly Health Tips. And the premise was the fact that I was a medical doctor, and so I needed a solution that was aligned to what I was doing. So what I did was create a subscription solution where you pay 500 Naira for 6 months, and you select a particular health topic you wanted to know about. So for instance, you select hypertension, and every week you receive an SMS teaching you or telling you about hypertension, such that by the end of 5 or 6 months, you are informed enough about hypertension to make certain informed decisions. The idea sounded extremely wonderful to me. I carried out a survey next to ask people what they thought about it. Everybody said, wonderful idea, lovely idea, 500 Naira, that's so good. I then pumped 500,000 Naira into the business. The moment I launched to the moment I closed the business down, not one person subscribed, nobody. Even the people that told me it was a wonderful idea did not subscribe, simply because it was not a problem they had. And so the only evidence that it was a key business would have been people patronizing me. And so the evidence your solution is needed by the people is that people are buying from you. In the events they're not buying from you, there has to be a strong indication of interest. So some people use what they call the letters of intent or pre-orders. There has to be a clear picture that when I get this thing to market, people will buy this thing I'm talking about. And so traction is really key. Again, peradventure, your problem doesn't catch their attention, your traction catch their attention. I remember in all those investment programs, all the Shark Tank and Dragon's Den and the rest, no matter how stupid they feel an idea is, the moment they hear the number of users or the revenue being made, they forget that the last second they were thinking the idea was stupid, simply because the idea now had traction. So if your problem is not, you're not able to show the magnitude of the problem, and you still want to get some level of investment, your traction has to be able to defend the fact that the business is a viable business. And so traction is key. You see what I have there, RTBs. So RTBs are reasons to believe. Whatever you have, be it testimonials, be it awards, be it accolades, whatever it is to support the notion that you are doing what you say you would do. Because it's very easy most times for me to speak. No matter how beautiful I tell you the Cherokee idea is, I'm the one saying it. What else do you expect me to say? But if somebody else is saying it, if international bodies are recognizing it, then you understand that there's some credibility to it. So you notice also in my own page, I dropped heavy on our awards, on our international awards, because those are reasons to believe that people separate from me, bodies you trust and you have confidence in, that also believe that my solution is a credible solution. So that's the importance many times of applying to these awards, because many times people say some people are entrepreneurs, only going for awards and so on and so forth. But the awards are important, especially in the early stages, because they validate your idea and they also provide marketing for you. People that would never have seen you will see you on those stages. So awards in this stage apply for as many as you can, because if you don't have users, you have at least some things to say to provide credibility. No matter what I say or what I do, once I mention that World Health Organization has endorsed us or awarded us, I can't imagine who you are that you think the business will work. You are not World Health Organization. You don't know as much as they do. So stuff like that helps you increase your credibility. And last, we have the management team. The question is, this team, are they able to provide all these things you are saying? Are they able to bring these things to pass? So I remember in the past, way before my startup days, I used to be a management consultant. I still do consulting on the side as regards to strategic innovation. But I realized management consulting in orthodox business is still far different from the startup world. Again, I thank Ventures for that because they were the foundation of all my startup knowledge in our initial accelerator then. You understand that it's night and day. However, there are still some similarities. Because when you drop a business plan, what happens? They first of all look straight to the financials to see how much you can make. They don't look at the markets to see if the market can sustain those financials. They now look to the management team to see if this management team can ensure this happens. So what are the things they look out for? They look out for domain experience. Are you experienced in the area? Do you have domain expertise? So that's knowledge of that business. But peradventure, you don't have the domain expertise. You have the experience in it long enough to enable you to do something concrete in this area. Because sometimes if you are in an industry, you are sort of have certain blind spots because you are doing things the way others in that industry are doing it. If you are coming from outside, you may come with another perspective. So that may be an advantage. Have you exited other businesses? Have you started and sold other businesses? For instance, I hear now that for the initial founders of Andela and Flutterwave and the rest, if he sets up a new venture now, although it is the first day or second day, there are people that already have money aside to invest in him, simply because of his track record. Do you have a strong track record? Does anybody on your team have a strong track record? Have they run unicorn businesses? Have they participated in the employees offer, stuff like that? So you must make sure all those things stand out in your management, whatever it is that makes you stand out from the crowd. Again, in the previous session, some talked about the fact that they may be a bit shy or be uncomfortable, maybe be it cultural biases to state the awards they've won and what they are doing and their competencies. And my question was, you cannot be shy about those things right now. Some people say it's just Nigerians that have no grievance. We're talking about the accolades. I said, look, you are selling your product, you are selling yourself. In the early stages, people don't invest in the business per se, they invest in the founders. And you are saying the most important thing about the founder, you should not say, which doesn't make any sense. It is not bragging if it's actually what you have done. So there's nothing wrong with putting your best foot forward, telling people out of the 10 people that exist that can solve this problem, you should invest in me because I have done this. So have no grievance about speaking about your accolades and your accomplishments during the management team slides, but don't spend the entire time on it. And finally, your call to action, what do you want? Is it funds you want? Is it partnership you want? Is it patronage you want? What do you want? State it clearly. If it's funds, state the funds you need and what you're going to use the funds for. And future plans are key. Most of you will realize I mentioned the fact that we are building the digital the Amazon of digital healthcare. That is the future. That's where I'm taking you to. So the earlier you come in, the better, because you're getting into Amazon at the earliest possible stage. So if everything else I said sounds credible, then the fact that I'm planning this will also sound credible to you. And that's where you round it up. Let them see the picture of the future that they can be a part of. All right. So before we move to delivery, let's dwell a bit on this content side of things. And let's hear our thoughts about it. Do we have any questions? What areas do we need more clarity on? Again, I need responses before I move, so I don't feel like I'm talking to myself alone. So if there are no questions, I need to hear at least one thing that impacted you that had a significant impact on what you just heard, that you didn't know before or that you start to apply. That one, everybody should have one of those. How many startups are here now?
3.
3.
Yes.
Okay, so I need 3 answers then. Either questions or either comments or something. 3 answers before I move to the next thing.
Let's begin with Kesia. Ekoba. Ekoba, Kesia.
You're on mute in case you are speaking.
Okay, Emeka Kitovu. Kitovu.
Are we here?
Okay, Jacob.
Yeah. Hello?
Emeka. Okay, Emeka, yeah.
I hear you.
And go on.
Yeah, Mika, we can hear you. You can speak up.
Okay.
So there's nothing that you took away from the session?
I took a lot from the session. One of the things that I've always agonized over when I pitch is it's usually what to capture, and then because I feel like I have to touch on those core things, I end up trying to touch all of them, and at the same time, at the end of the day, the key things that need to be emphasized, are not emphasized. I think it's quite insightful to think about it in that context, that the major information for the particular stakeholder that you are pitching to at that point in time is what will be passed across in terms of information, and then get a favorable disposition from them if they want to hear more. Yeah, so, and then of course the importance of storytelling, and emphasizing the fact that at the end of the day, regardless of the type of stakeholder or investor you're talking to, they would almost always relate to what you're saying if you can personify it in a story. So,
all right. Okay. So thank you very much, Emeka. At least I'm aware people are listening. I have no idea why the rest don't want to speak, but it will help you a long way if you're actually participating in this session. So I think, okay.
All right, Jacob, do you have anything to say or contribute? Jacob.
Either Jacob's mic is not working or same thing happened the last time. But let's move on. I usually prefer interactive sessions. It makes it more fun. It makes me talk a bit more about things people need to know, because usually people have something in their mind they would like to know that may be a bit different from the presentation itself, and they're able to open up for others to also learn from the responses we give. Have that behind your mind and also be able to be free to talk about it. Probably after the next session, we'll have a last question and answer session before we round up. But the last part is delivery. So here, as I said, you start with a bang and end with a bang. For those of you that listened to my pitch in the beginning, you'll realize it started with a bang. I said we're totally transforming healthcare delivery in Africa, beginning with Nigeria and beginning with the elderly. I now hit a problem you may not have even known existed, but knew was a big problem. So you start with a bang. Like you guys mentioned, I ended with a bang, talking about building the Amazon of digital healthcare and so on and so forth. So even if you don't remember anything, you remember the story in the beginning and remember that I was building, a solution like Amazon for digital healthcare in the future. What we can also note is that at the end, we can also use a technique I usually use for competitions, meaning if I have an idea of the judging criteria, I quickly summarize the entire pitch to touch the headers of the various areas in the judging criteria. So that peradventure, the judges lost attention and they were no longer present during the middle. An email came in, they checked their phone. At the end of the day, if they're seeking their marking log or scoring criteria. You have given them every point for each of the points they need to tick on. And so you're able to capture their attention the right way. So you start with the bank, break their preoccupation, whatever they are doing, let them stop and listen to you. And then you end with the bank also, and ensure the body. So in the body, they are what they call a vertebrae, 3 or 4 key things that you want them to know. It has been proven that people cannot hold more than 3 thoughts in their mind. And so try and distill what you want the people to live with into 3 things. So at the end of the session, when they ask them what they get from it or what they hold fast to, they will say the things you want them to say. So the truth is to start from the end and work your way back. So when you have an idea of what you want the person to be thinking about once they leave, you can now pepper your body with those 3 key things, such that at the end of the day, they live with those things. So there are a few key things you can take a look at. That is, what are you building and for who? Everybody that you pitch to should know this the moment they listen to you. I've had situations whereby people pitch for 5 minutes, and at the end of the day, you're not even clear what the solution does. You're not even clear who it's for. Just feel like probably you wasted 5 minutes of your life because you have no idea what the person is talking about. Sometimes people speak in buzzwords, use big vocabulary and stuff like that to make them sound intelligent. I don't know. But the key is that after they finish speaking, can somebody else understand and tell somebody about what you said? Then communication has taken place. So when the first thing is, what are you building and who is it for? The second is, why hasn't it been done before? So probably it depends on the person you're speaking to. If you don't have this captured in the slide itself, as you follow conversation, you must get this out. Because this solution, this problem, as you mentioned, is such a big problem. And the question is, why hasn't anybody tried to do it? When you realize people have tried to do certain things, but not exactly the way, because of certain understandings that you have. There's certain information you have. So for instance, when you apply to YC or apply to all those places, they have certain questions that say, what do you know that other people do not? So why has it not been done? Why are the incumbents not succeeding in it? Because of something you know and you are applying. Why is it hard to do what you're doing? So for instance, if you, how high is the barrier to entry? How defensible is the idea? Why is it hard to do? Is it patentable? Is it your domain expertise? Is it your skill? Is it a combination? Why is it hard to do? And finally, I think, okay.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah. You know, it's around this last part you're talking about, when you know, you need to show some level of additionality, or show what is it that you know that someone else or another set of people don't know. How do you showcase that, especially if you are in a space where it's pretty straightforward. There is little or no barriers to entry. It's very, very clear that, you know, those are the problems. How do you like bring that out to the fore, especially in a space that looks quite very wide and generic?
Okay. So 2 questions. First, there's a problem you are solving. Why do you pick that problem to solve? And that's a question, actually. So
okay,
the problem you pick to solve, out of all the problems in the world, why is that problem you pick to solve?
Well, if I was to give an answer to that, I would say it's basically because I experienced the problem. I lived the problem, right? And I felt it was a problem I could solve, and it was a big enough problem.
Okay, that's 1. 2, you experienced the problem. Why didn't you use the other solutions out there for it to solve it? Why did you decide to create your own?
Because
That's the key question. Okay.
Yeah, because I felt some of those solutions were built without a careful understanding of the end users, like what
Okay, so to help us out, just tell me what to do quickly. Tell me, and the way I said it, tell me the problem you're solving and the solution. Don't just jump into what you do.
Okay. So smallholder farmers typically make majority of the operational decisions relying on guesswork. As a result, they have very low yields, have limited access to markets, and lose up to 40 to 60% of everything that they produce. We build and provide for farmers climate smart farm and post-harvest infrastructure that enables the farmers improve their productivity and incomes.
Okay. So the other solutions out there, what do they do and why didn't you use them?
Okay, so in this case, so for smallholder farmers, even when a smallholder farmer's yield is poor, he also has another headache beyond just increasing his yield. So a lot of the solutions either focus on trying to get the farmer to improve his yield, but is not connecting them to the market, or is not like they require them to provide a solution that is sort of end-to-end because of the nature of the space. Yes.
Okay. So nobody at the moment provides end-to-end care?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason you know what you know is what? Why do you know that part of it?
Because I've actually farmed, and I've, in the process of trying to decide on the problem to solve, we actually ran a pilot where we got direct first-hand feedback from farmers.
So first of all, the insights you gleaned and the information you have as to why it hasn't been done before are the things you actually found out. Now, the process to solving it, what do? You create an application, or what exactly is your process?
So to solve it, it's actually a combination of 3 products. We have a satellite-based advisory platform that provides the recommendation and links the farmers to actual inputs. And then at harvest, we have a service that then connects what the farmer has produced to buyers. But if the farmer doesn't want to sell immediately, we have a product called Storage X, which essentially allows the farmer to store his goods and then issue them an electronic warehouse receipt that effectively turns their goods under storage into an asset that can then serve as a collateral to receive further financing. So we try to look at those major problems around poor yield, limited access to markets, post-harvest losses, to build products that complement each other and provide increased productivity for the farmer end-to-end.
Okay. So being a farmer yourself, you understood the pain points along all the channels from harvest to sale and whatever it is that gave you the insights to be able to develop the products. So you mentioned that, so is it easy for others to do this? Anybody can also wake up and do the thing you're doing?
I will be sincere and I will say it's relatively easy in the sense that the agricultural space is one where there is very, very limited barriers to entry.
Okay. So not to dwell so long on it, what are you going to do to make yourself more defensible, make your customer base more defensible, to reduce the chances of people taking your customers?
So our approach is to actually work towards building a moat around our business by ensuring that farmers can get any kind of service they want from us without having to leave the system. So we realize that we are not going to be able to solve every problem. So for the problems we are not able to solve, we work towards putting in place strategic partnerships. So for instance, we do not need to start providing tractor services when we can simply get a strategic partnership with a Hello Tractor, for instance, right?
Okay, so let me cut you short then, so that you don't take too much of time.
Okay.
What you do, your answer is to construct a strategy to prevent poaching or people taking your customers and so on and so forth. Create a strategy that encompasses your competitive advantage and why you can protect it. And that's what you will say. So if, for instance, you know this thing that you said, you will say it clearly who you're talking to, that although these are the likelihoods, these are the things we have put in place to ensure that they don't happen. So listening to your own story so far, what I can get is, even when you're talking about the problem, always start with yourself and the reason you face the same problems, you did not find any solution, you brought up your own and blah, 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 you had the skills to do that. And then you go to the larger picture of how they're exactly the way you do it, how there are more million more people like one of those farmers like you looking for the same solution, blah, blah, blah. Then you provide the solution. And then that even shows how you thought about the solution and got the solution, the insights you thought about, what hasn't been done, why hasn't it been done before. That will capture all those side of things. When it gets to this, why is it hard to do what we are doing? If to you it's not hard, you will stay, let it come out. Because now there's an elephant in the room. Let it come out, but you don't add the layer of the steps you are putting in place to ensure you're able to mitigate against all those things. But let the things that are putting in place be structured in a way that is clearly believable or clearly doable. So yes, they can enter, but even if they enter, this is what they will face. So I'll use my business as an example. Many times people say, what if somebody just quickly sets up their own home service business and begins to them, blah, blah, blah. So what we have is similar to all these other platforms or Netflix and the rest, where you can only access your records through us. So you'll be with us for some time, somebody else comes, it means you are going to that other person with no health record, with no filing history, with no medical history. So what benefit should that person provide for you when they don't know everything else that's been happening with you? So in our own system, you have to be part of the system to access your records. And you have to use our doctors to have them see your files. So it's like saying going from one hospital to the next and not having any records of your past. So the more we're able to get you, to see you, to have your records on our platform, that is coming. So make all those things clear. People talk about the fact that, this is a marketplace. How are we sure the doctor and the patients will not sideline us and start having activities on their own? The benefit to us is that the person paying for the service and the person using the service are different people. And so the son, for instance, in the UK, is utilizing the service because of the records, because of the information, because of the application. The mother here can have a conversation with a doctor and straightforward do what he needs to do, but he doesn't have all the other benefits. The person paying has so many benefits going to us directly that even if he tries to sideline us, all the benefits of the application, your records, other services are not there. So those are all defensible things. So no matter what they say, as the possibility of people coming on board, you have the structure to prevent that. So if you feel it's easy for people to replicate, just have structures in place that are able to protect the people you have. I don't know if that's clear. Emeka, are we okay?
Yes, makes a lot of sense.
All right. So last, I said why this is an opportunity that should not be missed. So that's what they call the fear of missing out. Many times investors have what they call herd mentality. So they don't want to lose out. So if it seems like it's something that is hot at this moment, and if they don't come in now, they might lose out or invest at a much later stage when the valuation is higher. They may be more open to investing at this time. So next we look at the quality. Sorry, how much more time do we have? I think there's still a bit. I need to go faster. Is it Jennifer on the call? How much more time do we have? How much time do we have?
15 more minutes.
15, okay. I think I was more fast for the last part there. So the qualities of a great presentation. One, clarity. The presentation is clear and simple. Don't use any highfalutin words or any buzzwords. Let everybody you are speaking to be able to clearly understand what you are saying. As they say, use the mom test, or if your 5-year-old can understand it. So can you explain this to your 5-year-old brother or sister or daughter, and she understands what you are doing and can tell somebody else? Or can you explain it to your mom, this is what I'm doing in simple terms, and immediately you say it, she understands it and can tell somebody else. So the presentation needs to be clear in simple English. English used daily. Don't use words you don't normally use in normal conversation. There must be excitement. The opportunity is compelling and grabs the listener's attention. You must be passionate about it. Most of the time, people ask me, why am I so passionate? When I'm teaching, when I'm preaching, why am I passionate? So I don't try to be passionate. I'm just passionate because I'm excited about what I'm doing. I'm deep into it. I understand it. I flow with it. And so that comes across in how I'm speaking. If they don't catch the excitement, they're wondering what is the catch? What is going on here that they don't know about? So you must be excited. You must show passion. There's a book I used to read from Brian Tracy that says sale is an exchange of enthusiasm. At each point in time, a sale is made. Either the person you are trying to sell to has sold you on the reason why you should not buy, or you have sold him on the reason why you should buy. At every point in time, a sale is made. So excitement is very important. It must be informative. You must teach the listeners a thing or two you did not know before. Again, I'll use my pitch as an example. The problem I stated, many of us are not even aware it exists. It has taught you something you ordinarily did not know. What you are teaching them or the problem you are bringing forth to their view should be something that is not so obvious, something they even think about, they don't know. So they have learned something by listening to you. Even the way your solution is to bring an, when I say innovative or I'll use the word innovative. Should be innovative and should teach them something they have not thought about. They have not thought about it that way before. Because if it's common knowledge, then it means anybody could have done it. And if it's common knowledge and it's not done, it means there's a particular reason it's not being done. Meaning a lot of people may have tried it and for some reason it's not working. So if it's common knowledge, then why are you just going to it? Because others have known about the solutions and never tried it. There must be a reason, something you don't know. So you must be able to teach them something about the problem, a knowledge they never had, or about the way you are going about the solution. As I said, it must be memorable. Stories stay with the audience. They remember it after you left. Most of the time after my pitches, people remember the story of my father. That's actually a real story, and come and commiserate with me, and say they have the same situation. They knew their uncle has a situation or something like that. So it's just key to make sure that there's something they can take away from the story and remember you by. Even if they don't remember the details, they remember the story, so you remind them of the problem, now remind them of the solution. If they ever hear somebody else that has that problem, they know they're able to solve it with their solution. So as I said, speak slowly and enunciate, sound natural and not as though the pitch was memorized. So almost every pitch is memorized. But the way you make it sound natural is by rehearsing it a lot of times, hundreds of times. I know my own pitch at this moment in time, I can pitch it front to back, back to front. I can start from the last slide and pitch backwards to the top just because I've pitched it so many times. I'm sure right now it's about over 500 times from the beginning of when I started pitching to about close to 1,000, most likely, from rehearsals and actual pitches to investors and pitching in competitions and so on and so forth. You must know it and it must be natural to you. Look at the audience. So right now we're doing virtual presentations. It may not be as easy to actually look at them, but look at the camera of your laptop. Face it squarely. Don't look up at it. Don't look down at it. Keep your eyes squarely focused on it so that people are feeling you're connected to them. Don't use generic phrases and transitions. So you notice between my slides, I don't say so or next slide is or the problem is or so. No, it connects. So remember from the first slide of the problem with the statistics to the slide of my father, what I said was, most people will ordinarily see this as a statistic until you have a personal experience like I did, and you put in your story. So each slide moves to the next, very smoothly. When I was moving to the traction, I mentioned the fact that, for over 5 years now, we've been able to consistently and successfully solve this problem by providing care for over 150,000 users. I didn't just say we've solved the 115. I moved to the next slide. So the idea was that the whole thing sounded like one story from top to bottom. It didn't sound like a lecture. It sounded like one story being told with a once upon a time to the happily ever after. Be declarative and not cute about your points. So your awards, your accomplishments, things you've done, be declarative about it, your traction, your revenue. You remember I mentioned the fact that we go 2x year on year for the first 3 years, 5x for the 4th year. We're looking to hit 100 million in 2025. And that's be declarative about it simply because they are actual figures you've had and you believe you can hit them. Highlight your achievements. I mentioned that. Speak naturally and don't use words you will not use in normal conversation. So what I do is I write the entire script from top to bottom, from my first word to my last word, and then read it out loud continuously, and then pick out the words that you not use on a natural conversation. If speaking to a friend, you will not use that word. Take it out. Try the word sound, the pitch sounds like a conversation, not like a lecture. Actually explain what to do and do it quickly. It's surprising that many people don't clearly state what they do, and at the end of the day, people are not quite sure what exactly they are provided. Then you design your deck. So though visually appealing, the slides, the slides should complement your story and not dominate it. So you may need another pitch training entirely on slide design. But one thing I want you to note is important you do not design your slides yourself unless you are a graphic designer or an expert in the field. It's very important. So let me digress a bit also. So I remember in the early days, when I first pitched to ventures, that was in early 2017. Because I had been lecturing, I've been doing trainings and stuff like that, I created my own slides and I thought it was a spectacular slide. But fortunately, the people I pitched to them, I think it was Kayode and Ming Shak then, they loved the business, but they were very amused at the slides. Slides I thought I spent time doing. They laughed so hard at it, simply because it was not well designed. I remember also sessions in the early days with Google where they would say they like it, but your slide looks like cake. Somebody even told me once that it looks like your 6-year-old daughter designed your slides. But I thought it was good because I thought I was good at doing slides because I've been teaching for quite a while, so that was not a problem. So no matter how beautiful you think your own slides are, please get it to a professional to get it done for you. It's not difficult these days. There's Fiverr.com. Get to them, pay them less than $100, and they will get you a professional, beautiful looking slides, because the quality of the slides may take away from the quality of the businessman and the startup founder. So it's key. Second is to reduce the words. Don't put too many words in it. Let the slides be a sound or pictures to your voice. So let it just complement your voice and not take away. Let people be able to focus on what you are saying, feel the emotion from it. Because if they are reading from the slides, all the emotion in your voice and your passion does not translate to the words of the slide. And if they are reading the slides, they are not listening to you, which is what we want to try and avoid. And finally, practice, practice, practice. Very important, extremely important. Even people like Steve Jobs used to practice fanatically. So whatever he does that seems natural has been rehearsed to the T. So you need to rehearse your slides until they're part of you. If for any reason the slides go off during your presentation, it should not affect you in any way. So I remember a time I was pitching in South Africa, there was technical fault and the slides just stopped moving on. The slide just started moving too fast and they stopped going through. But fortunately, I had the slides already fully in my brain. And so I was able to complete it without even looking at any slides. Unfortunately, I got the first prize in that competition, even without slides. So the slides could have, distracted me or discouraged me, but I knew with or without slides, my content was already the way it's supposed to be. So practice until you understand it extremely fully. Let it be a part of you. So even when you're picking what slide to speak on, as long as you're taking a slide out, you're taking the words with that slide. So you have a master deck where you have words for each slide, but when you're reducing your decks, when you take out the slide, you take out the words. So for instance, you have a 3-minute pitch. You don't try and cram a 5-minute talk into 3 minutes. What you do is take out certain slides, and the words that go with those slides are also taken out, and then the speech is automatically shortened. So I think that's about the end of this. What I would like to leave us with is the unbreakable rules of pitching, which is 1, storytelling, 2, be emotional, 3, be memorable. Then I will add practice, practice, practice. Practice until the point whereby it sounds extremely natural and conversational, and make sure you get a professional to do your deck. So I think that's where I'll stop. If you have any questions, I'm open to answer, but I realize that they'll be matching people to mentors later, and also we'll have more time to speak going forward. So Ventures Park, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Ofrey. We are so grateful for the very enlightening session we've just had. I mean, my notes is filled up. So guys, do you have any question at this point to ask Dr. Ofrey? And we'll take your questions before we wrap up.
So I have one question, and it's around deck design. How markedly different should a deck you're going to send to an investor be from a deck you are going to be pitching on, knowing that for a deck you're going to be sending, you are not going to be there to defend it? How markedly different should it be? When you're doing presentation, a lot is said about not making it wordy and all that. So how different should the deck design be?
All right. So we should have 3 basic decks. 1 for the pitch, 1 to send, and 1 for an actual meeting where there'll be more details. So they've now called you for a physical meeting to have a deeper discussion. So those discussions usually are about 20 to 30 minutes with you. What I've also noticed is that many times we're always very used to the whole business plan style of writing and writing a lot of stories in it. No, it should still be similar to your pitching deck, just that there'll be a bit more of the words you say on the deck. The one you are sending does not have to have too much information until you have a full meeting with them. But the deck you send is still supposed to be able to be skimmed through and fully understand what you are doing. I remember the deck I used to send that people used to send back, or people that went to comment told me that it's too long, too many words. So still that 15 slides type of level, but it should just succinctly capture the things you're saying. So for instance, on my own slides, some slides may not have any words at all because I'm speaking. But since I'm sending it without me, I add a sentence or 2 to explain the things I want to say. So for instance, a deck you are sending for an investor, they are skimming through it. Many times you think they are reading all those things, they are not reading it. So the way I said it, the problem, 1 sentence. It can be problem, a sentence as in your personal, whatever story you want to put into it, a sentence or 2, then statistics to validate that thing, move to the solution, explain in as simple terms as possible, and so on. Let the words not be too many, but it will be more than you are speaking, because in the speaking one, as I said, my own slides are some slides that are just a picture, nothing much to say about it. But anything you need to add a little more points on, don't make it too wordy still. Reduce the amount of words. Let them be able to, you know how we used to do, I don't know if you used to do it, all those flip stories when we were much younger, where you have books and the creator of stick figures on the edges, and you're able to flip through the pages of the book, but the person gets the story you're trying to tell. So it's like flipping quickly through, but at the first quick glance, they should get the problem, solution, market size, traction, and all those things. They just get it clearly at one go. But the one you are pitching, you don't have to be there. Then you have the one that you have a 20, 30 minutes meeting with, where you're standing there and talking and giving them facts and graphs and statistics and so on. That's okay. So what some people also do is that they have an investor deck and they have a business plan deck. Those are two different things. When it says, shoot me a quick deck, if you send them the business plan one, they will not read that thing. But send them a one, they can also still skim through and still call you for the full meeting. People don't make full decisions off a deck. It never happens. That you send an investor deck and then from that deck, they will not take the final decision. It will not happen. But that deck will make them speak to you for the further final meeting one-on-one, where they ask you questions from the deck they want to understand. So they are different, but not so different. There are more words in the deck you send, but still make it light, such that the person can skim through it.
All right, thank you.
All right, anyone else with question? Jacob, Kessia, Ibukun, I know you joined a little later, but if you have any question.
No question.
All right. Okay, so like Dr. Ofrey said, we'll be attaching to mentors shortly, so you get to engage for that, hopefully. Thank you very much, Dr. Ofrey, for availing us your time today, and it's been quite insightful. I see Kessia is already saying thank you in the chat box. I'm sure everyone has gotten a lot of value from this session, and we're still going to have teach practice sessions much later in the program, where we invite people to listen in on the startup speeches and then give them feedback as the time goes. So thank you very much once again. With that, we would like to bring an end to today's session.
All right. Thank you, everyone.